The Auburn Tigers advance to the Sweet 16. Let's talk about it, and let's preview the matchup a little bit of what we should expect in Atlanta. You're watching the Weekend Tailgate.
This is the Weekend Tailgate. Brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron. C-Dub. Joe. Be Will. By G. You are now listening to.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our general.
I'm just clicking all kind of buttons today. The Weekend Tailgate brought to you by the good folks at Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, the folks at Golden's Cast Iron have you covered. Hit code, get your weight up for 15% off of weights. Code TWR for $65 off of fire pits and Kamado grills. Auburn did some grilling this weekend in Lexington to the tune of making it to the Sweet 16, advancing versus two worthy opponents there. So make sure y'all hit up Golden's Cast Iron. Maybe you can work out or grill out or chill out watching some more Auburn basketball this coming weekend in Atlanta. If you want to be a part of Green Name Gang, your boy Ike Jones has plenty of content for you. So go ahead and get your membership active. $3.99 will get you to the supporter level, $5.99 to the patron level. And we appreciate everybody who's a part of Green Name Gang. So much more content. Basketball content is on deck for y'all. So make sure that y'all lock in with that. If you are a member and you want to gift someone a membership, you can do that right now. They'll get a free month of membership on you. And I don't know how stressful it was for you all in that game. I will admit that as soon as the game started, I got a little anxiety. Like, oh my goodness, are we going to make this happen? And then Creighton came out there bombing away from three. Rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT when you get over there. Get you 15% off at America's #1 online dispensary. That tells them the folks at the War Report sent you over there. I am currently rolling solo. I may have some others jump in here with me, but I did not want to delay this anymore. We already had to start late because myself, Mike G, were on the road in Lexington this weekend covering the Auburn Tigers. Just got back today. Mike is out there in traffic somewhere trying to get back to home for him. And so we're just going to get this thing rolling and talk a little bit about this game. They already had the reaction show from yesterday, so there has been some conversation in regard to this already, but definitely want to continue that conversation and talk a little bit more about Auburn advancing to the Sweet 16. A lot of people had a lot of things to say in regard to this game and whether or it's really this Auburn team and whether or not they would actually be able to get to Atlanta. But no more. That conversation is done. Now it's shifted to, oh, they won't make it out of Sweet 16. But of course, you have to deal with that at every single turn. People want to have their opinions about what Auburn will do. But what we know what Auburn has done is have an amazing regular season, capturing the SEC regular season title. They have convincingly double-digit victories versus their first two opponents in the postseason here in the NCAA tournament, and they will advance to the Sweet 16 in Atlanta and hopefully be in a position where they can advance to the Elite Eight after the Friday game, which is where it's slated to be Friday night versus the Michigan Wolverines. But let's talk a little bit about what has transpired. The Creighton game. Again, I was courtside during that game. Let me just start with this. I'm sure that there are a lot of really, really great Creighton Blue Jay fans. You have a really good team. Your team was out there competing really hard. 9 first half 3-pointers. It was like, oh my goodness, like, can these dudes miss from three? They was going out there lighting it up. Every opportunity they got a sliver of daylight. They made sure that they made Auburn pay for that. But man, it was a couple of Creighton fans that were sitting right behind us. We were sitting in the section, I think, with the highest concentrate. I think like it was like family sitting right behind where we were in the meeting. Those fans right there were they like my last nerve. They were tap dancing on it for the entire game. Like complaining about every single call. Mike G tweeted about this, like when Chad went down after he made those free throws. They were saying crazy, wild stuff about how he need to get up and stop faking and all this kind of stuff. And then when Dylan went down with the cramps, they were like, "Oh, the baby's got a cramp." Stuff like I was like, "Yo, y'all doing you're doing too much. You're doing too much. Settle down. I get it. Just be in here and cheer for your team. You know, boo against the other team when they do some stuff that like that's cool, bro. But like, man, come on, man. That kind of stuff. I was like, y'all, you're doing too much. You was already on my nerves because you was just talking too much and doing normal hollering at the ref stuff, and it was just annoying because your voice was annoying. But you went that one step, like, yo, come on, bro. Be better than that. Be better than that. And then again, this ain't got nothing to do with the game. I'm gonna get into Creighton and how I felt like they did and how Auburn did in the game. I ain't gonna lie to listen. You can call me unprofessional, whatever you want to. I hated the Creighton band. They were awful. They was terrible. Oh, it was so bad. I was just like, bro, just can we please win so I don't have to hear them play their victory song or whatever after this game, dog. Like I didn't want to hear that band. It was it was so bad. I was just like, oh, your pep band. Sorry. Just stop. Please stop playing music. It's not good. It's not good at all, man. But that ain't got nothing to do with the basketball team. Basketball team had some ballers on it, and they went out there and did their thing. Now, interestingly, in this game, you saw Coach Pearl go to a shortened bench. Like he didn't have the rotation that you would normally see of like 8 guys, 9 guys that he's rotating through. They really only played 7 in this game. There's going to be 8 guys that are going to show up in the stat sheet as far as minutes, but Kai Howard only played 2 minutes. It was really your starting 5 plus Cheney and Tahad for the vast majority of this game. And that's an interesting shift for a team that a lot of what we as Auburn fans have come to expect is a basketball team that is going to play with a lot of depth. And that was going to be the reason why it was going to be difficult to beat Auburn in 2 halves of basketball, because they were going to be fresh at the end of the games. Did not go that direction in this game. Only played 7 guys, shortened the rotation. So that was interesting to me to see that. And I wonder if that is going to be a trending direction for the rest of this tournament, or if that was a matchup related thing, because I don't know. I don't have a reason as to why. And that's something maybe would be interesting to ask Coach Pearl going into this week, leading into the next matchup for the Sweet 16. Is like, was this a strategic thing for this game? And he may not answer that question, or is that kind of what we can expect going forward? The rotation to be shortened for Auburn. But at any rate, you got contributions from pretty much everybody. Put something on the stat sheet there for Auburn. And you got really good and significant contributions in some way from everybody who touched the floor. Even Jakai Howard in his 2 minutes, I like the energy he brought. Like he got very close to blocking. There was a situation where Creighton went to a post up and Dylan Cardwell fell down, and Jakai Howard, all effort, got very close to blocking that layup attempt from Kalkbrenner Kalkbrenner for Creighton. He got very close. So I liked the energy that he came in, the effort that he displayed on the defensive end, his awareness. So I like the contributions from everybody who touched the floor from Auburn. Now, some of them are going to look better than others, and stat sheet is going to show a very specific thing about, and then we'll talk about the good and the bad for some of this stuff. But you got really, really great minutes and point production. We'll start with the leading point guy in Tahad Pettiford. And what I liked about what Tahad did in this game was he didn't settle for threes a lot, right? He only took 3 3-pointers the entirety of the game, but he took 14 shots. I like that he realized, hey, they're playing a lot of drop coverage. And if you are a Green Name Gang, then you already saw me talk about how there were going to be opportunities with the drop coverage that they play. And what I mean by drop coverage is in pick and roll situations, they typically have Kalkbrenner dropped back into the paint, rather than hedging high. Now, they started to hedge high later when they were trying to force more turnovers out front, and you saw a lot of Tahad still being able to get around the big who just didn't have the foot speed to keep him from the paint, or he would split that double team. And I'll try to get some film review stuff on this for my Green Name Gang folks, just so we can talk about like what I talked about in pregame and then how it played out for what Creighton did during the game, specifically Auburn's offense versus their defense. We'll talk about a little bit about that. But when they were trying to hedge, they couldn't really get there. He was splitting that, but he did not settle for a lot of three-pointers. Now, the threes he took, he made 2 or 3 of them, but he did a really great job of getting downhill and then making mid-range shots that were going to be available because of how far back that big was dropped. Right, he just get in there, he get like a little floater or a little runner, something like that in the middle of the lane, because that area was open a lot based upon how Creighton was defending. I like the decision making he made for how he was getting his points, getting downhill, forcing the action, forcing that big to either have to come up. And if he did come up, all right, cool, I'm going to kill you from the mid range. If he can find that portion of his game, I know a lot of this. People don't like mid-range shots anymore in basketball. It's either got to be a layup or it's got to be a three-pointer. That mid-range is open a lot. I love the fact that he got to it consistently and he hit it with proficiency. And then he went to the free throw line, 7 of 8 free throws, really good there. The turnovers that he had, one of them was a pretty bad turnover in terms of he kind of just dribbled the ball around for no reason and dribbled it off his leg. But overall, love the efficiency that you had from him in this game and love the way in which he was attacking the rim. And he played solid defense. He wasn't like a great defensive player, but his quickness is something that Coach Pearl talked about. His quickness allowed him to get to loose balls. It allowed him to be in position to force guys to turn different directions. He used his athleticism to his advantage. Loved it. And loved the way that he was able to contribute off of the bench, playing pretty heavy minutes. He played 32 minutes off of the bench in this game. And it allowed Denver Jones, because he was taking care of the ball and he was scoring, to play off the ball a little bit more, which is something that Denver is really good at and has been more accustomed to doing in his career. It allowed Denver to be a guy who could stretch the floor and give you more shooting options around the outside. I think that Denver is a better catch and shoot player than Tahad is a catch and shoot player. So when you have Tahad at your point guard or at your main facilitator, particularly in a pick and roll situation, they have to respect the fact that Denver's on one side. And then when he wasn't hurt, you would have Chad over on the other side. So you could stretch the floor. You're going to have a big push down into the lane. So your defense for being able to stop Tahad from getting downhill, if he's going to be making that forcing action and get those guys, get around those guards or get around those screens and get downhill, it's going to make it really difficult for you to defend when you've got 2 guys in the corners that are threats to be able to shoot the ball. And he did a really good job of forcing the action in that way. Next, you get really great contributions. Next up, as far as scoring is concerned, can't say enough about particularly second half Chad Baker-Mazar. Now, Chad started the game out with a lot of activity for Auburn as well. He scored, I think the first 5 points were like, it might've been Auburn's first 5 points was Chad's. I know his first bucket was, and then he followed that up with a 3 soon thereafter. But coming out in the second half, you can tell Chad was in takeover mode. And again, same thing I'll say about what Tahad did. He wasn't settling for the 3-point shot. Chad Baker-Mazar in this game took 4 threes, made 2 of them. But all of them that he took that were threes were really good and open looks. They weren't a lot of, dribble, get into a step back situation. When he got the ball, he was determined to get downhill. He was driving it. He was taking mid-range shots that were available to him, or he was getting all the way to the rim. He's got a little bit more length. He can finish up over the top, and he was doing a really good job of forcing the action. Again, if those bigs are going to continue to cede ground to you, we're going to force and drive it towards them, because you have the athleticism to get around their guards, particularly if you're going to put them in a pick situation. They're already going to be trailing, right? So if they're going to be trailing anyway, trying to get around a screen, then you should be able to drive downhill. They did a really good job of driving downhill, forcing the action against those bigs to make them either have to step up, and if they did, you drive it past them, get around them for a layup, or you have to dump down like Denver Jones did that one time where he hit Dylan Cardwell. So really great job on their offensive scouting of how they wanted to play the pick and roll scenarios and being able to get downhill. Chad Baker-Mazar, loved what he did in the second half. He was on the day 6 of 12 shooting 3 of 4 from the free throw line. I was a little worried when he missed his first free throw. I was like, oh, what's going on here? But didn't miss any more after that. He only had 2 rebounds, but really good activity from him overall. Would have loved to seen him, like, if he, let me say this, if Chad doesn't go down in the middle after that flurry that he had there at the top of the second half, I think Auburn wins by an even bigger margin. They did not have an answer for Chad. Like, the only answer they would have had to have was, all right, let's force the ball out of his hands. And then he would have been in a scenario where he would be a very willing passer, because Chad, he likes to be able to facilitate once he gets into that mode. And so I think it would have been that Auburn would have won by much more had Chad not gotten hurt. That's not to say that other guys didn't do a good job of stepping up. I just think the way he was kind of at will getting to his spots and the proficiency in which he was delivering once he got to those spots, I don't know how Creighton would have adjusted to that. That doesn't allow for guys who were shooting well into Todd and Denver, and then Dylan, who was playing really good, just kind of as a guy in the dunker spot there, or Cheney, who had a good game from the mid-range dunker spot. I don't know how you don't just get more of that when Chad is there being able to do that. And as athletic a guy as Ja'Kai Howard is, he's not that same kind of ball handler downhill looking to facilitate guys. So he wouldn't have been able to come in and do that. I didn't even mention Miles Kelly when I talked about guys you have to respect on the outside. So, like, they had so many opportunities with Tahad as your major ball handler, or when Chad was the major ball handler coming out of the half, to be able to get downhill, and they took advantage of that. Next up, I just talked about him a second ago, and that's Denver Jones. Denver Jones with 15 points on 5 of 8. Super efficient, 5 of 8 shooting, 2 of 2 from 3, perfect from the free throw line, had 3 assists. Denver, again, was a guy very willing to get downhill and make shots in the paint, make mid-range shots, and be able to force the action against those guards. Listen, and then, like, defensively, I didn't mention this when talking about Chad, just the effort that he was given on the defensive end. He had a very tough guard against Jemiah Neal, and he took that guard very personally, and he was out there making Neal work for it. Neal was, I don't know what he had in the first half. Let me take a look at that. Neal only had 4 points in the first half on 2 of 7 shooting. Vast majority of that is Chad and Miles making sure that they made life very difficult for him to get good, clean looks. And then when they did get switches and they had to hide on him where he could shoot over the top, he hadn't gotten into a rhythm yet, so he didn't really get an opportunity to get going. Chad and Miles did a really great job of just making everything muddy for him when he was getting his catches. And I loved what they did defensively to kind of just take him out, because he was the best shot creator on that team. So what they like to do is just put the ball in his hands, let him go. All right, cool. End of the shot clock. We're going to try to run some action, get the good favorable matchup for him, clear it out, let him go operate. Auburn did a really great job of switching actions and making sure that when he was coming off of those screens, they still had a big guard in his face to be able to defend. So when he was trying to get into his stuff in the mid-range, it was tougher shots for him. So really great job and energy effort from Tahad. Denver got switched out on him a couple times, is where I was going with Denver. The defense that he had, listen, Creighton, they're going to run a lot of screens to try to get a lot of guys open for those threes, and they did a really good job of that in the first half. But Denver's effort to fight over screens, like, I wish I could just show you some of the stuff that he was doing to fight over screens and really just make it tough, particularly for Ashworth there for Creighton. Make it really tough for him to get open opportunities. Like, he wasn't getting clean releases a lot of the times. Now, I say that, but he knocked down 3 of 7 threes. But a lot of what he had to do, he had to work really hard just to get clean looks. And they did a really good job in the pick and roll defense for Auburn of, hedge and recover for their bigs with the off-ball defense that they were doing. Again, this is something Green Name Game we'll get into, and we'll look at this stuff on the film, and we'll talk about some of this, because ironically enough, defensively, specifically for Michigan, you're going to see some very similar things to how Michigan likes to defend. Now, I'll need to look at more than just the Texas A&M film for Michigan to make sure that that's kind of how they defend and not how they decided to defend Texas A&M. But I did see some similarities in how Michigan was poised defensively versus Texas A&M. So it's going to be interesting to see if that is a pattern of what they've been doing over the season. But Offensively, very different teams, but anyway, we'll talk more about Michigan later. But love what Denver Jones did offensively again, not settling for threes. Just as a whole, I mean, Auburn on this game only took 19 threes. Coach Pearl talked about this. Dylan Cardwell talked about this. I talked about I don't want to live in a world where Auburn's taking 33s in a game, and they did that versus Alabama. It's way too many threes, even in a game, like. They specifically, Dylan Cardwell specifically at least said they shouldn't be taking that many threes when you have the size advantage on the interior. I don't think that even in a game where against Creighton, you don't really have the interior size advantage, you should be taking that many threes. Like it just, even if they're open, find ways to catch that pump fake, get downhill, mid-range game, layup, whatever you need to do to force the action. I think they could have done that a lot more versus Alabama State. They did a great job of that versus Creighton, and did a really great job of being able to make shots in those scenarios that are shots that most people don't defend well. That mid-range shot is not a well-defensed shot in today's basketball because of how defenses try to take away the high percentage, post touch, or they want to take away the three that gives up a lot of more points in bunches. So Auburn did a really great job strategically of saying, we've got guys who can make these shots. Let's take these shots a lot more often. Denver Jones to High Pettiford, Chad Baker-Mazar lived in that area in this Creighton game. So love what they did. Next up, I got to talk about Cheney Johnson, man. Cheney Johnson, 4 of 6. I gave you guys a stat. I don't know how much you guys actually watch when I do these previews on the Lobtown thing, when I talk about the game specifically. But I said during this tournament, I wanted to see Cheney Johnson get 7+ boards per game. First 2 games, he's been able to accomplish that. 7 or more boards in both of the first 2 games. He had 8 rebounds in this game versus Creighton. He only had 8 points, but an efficient, and this is another thing I said about Chad. I don't really care the amount of points that he has. What I want to see him do is get 7+ rebounds and be efficient with the things that he takes. 4 of 6 from the field. And that's an efficient game for him because he takes a lot of high percentage shots. So if he's missing a lot of shots, then he's missing usually fairly makeable shots, particularly for him, the mid-range jump shots, turnaround shots, the little floaters in the lane, layups, dunks. That's where he's getting a lot of his activity and points in this Auburn system that they're running. He's going to get threes every now and then, but if he's efficient and he can contribute on the boards as well as stay out of foul trouble, that's really what you want from Cheney Johnson, because his athleticism allows for his activity to be out there, allows for him on defense to be able to switch and do a lot of things. He allows you to do a lot of stuff. So when he gets those paint touches, he needs to be efficient. 4-6 shooting, 8 points on the day, exactly what you needed from him, along with the 8 rebounds. So wonderful game there for Cheney Johnson. All right. So we're going to get into 2 guys who didn't have a great game, right? Let's just be clear. I didn't think that they had a great game offensively, but on the defensive end, did everything that you needed them to do. Did everything that you needed them to do. First and foremost, we're going to talk about excuse me. Before I get there, let me talk about Dylan Cardwell, because I don't want to skip past Dylan Cardwell. Perfect 3 of 3 from the field for 6 points. Missed both of his free throws, but I mean, he's not a great free throw shooter. Only 4 boards. But what Dylan did as far as his activity, his defense on Kalkbrenner, and the defense that he had when he was stepping out on those guards, when they started to do a lot more of the hedge against the screen actions and being able to hedge and recover. The activity that Dylan Cardwell had for Auburn in this game, his ability to get out and block shots. Let's talk about shot blocking. I haven't mentioned blocks at all so far in this one, because the only people that had block shots were he and Janai, but he had 2 block shots in this game and 3 assists. This again, when I previewed this game, is one of the things I talked about. They weren't going to bring Kalkbrenner out on Dylan. He's not a threat to shoot jump shots or anything like that. They're going to leave Kalkbrenner in the paint, which means Dylan was going to have an opportunity to survey the floor a little bit more, and he's going to be an aggressive screener out front, because he's going to be allowed to roam and do those sorts of things without the big right there on his hip. Dylan did a great job just being active and allowing things to happen around him and just facilitating the level of physicality that was going to happen in the paint. He was very much an enforcer. Down low, what they decided to do, because Kalkbrenner's going to be dropped back into the lane. All right, great. When Dillon gets down there, he's going to post up, but his post up is essentially a screen action that allowed for the guards, for Cheney, Janai, to be able to get to the rim without a contest from the major shot blocker there. They did a really good job of making Dylan Cardwell a late screener in the lane for the downhill drives that gave Auburn a lot more free opportunities at the rim without the major shot blocker being able to come over for Creighton in this game. In fact, Creighton only had one blocked shot on the entirety of the game. Again, Kalkbrenner's a guy who just recently got announced as one of the finalists for Defensive Player of the Year or something like that. Like, he's a guy that impacts the game a lot on the defensive end. The Auburn strategy was like, all right, great. If you're going to be down here and patrolling the paint, you're going to have to get around Dylan Cardwell or Janai Broom to even be able to go contest this stuff. Did a great job of putting him in stress situations where if he's going to fight over the top to try to get to a shot block, we're just going to dump it down. It's exactly what happened in that Denver Jones late situation where he got it to Dillon. Is you had Dillon down in the dunker spot opposite of where, Denver goes to make the left-hand drive. Dillon is on the opposite side of the goal on the right-hand drive. Initially, Dillon's in front. He slips back to the dunker. Kalkbrenner comes over for the shot block. Denver dishes it off to Dillon, and Dillon gets the easy dunk attempt. He probably got fouled on that too. I feel like he got fouled and they just didn't call it. But two-hand flush there at the end. So really great, just scout opportunity for Auburn's staff to just say, this is how we're going to impact the shot blocker. And Dillon did a really good job of executing that scout, particularly on the defensive end. Really great job there. All right. Now, let's get into these other two guys. Again, stat sheet's not going to say they did a great job offensively, but you can't underscore too much what they did on the defensive end. That's Miles Kelly, Janai Broom. Miles Kelly, only 5 points, 1 of 8 shooting. Again, this is something I talked about every time. This is the third time this season. The game after Miles Kelly hits 7 or more threes, he has now only made 2 3-pointers in those 3 games combined. 2 threes combined in those 3 games after he makes 7 or more 3-pointers in a game. So he had 1 in the game that followed up the big game he had the first game he played in an Auburn uniform there in Auburn. And he had 0 in the Texas A&M game after he hit those 9 threes versus Kentucky. He made 7 threes versus Alabama State. He made 1 3-pointer versus Creighton. I don't know why that is. I don't have no explanation other than that's what's been happening. So, I mean, it's just super interesting to see that, but that trend continues for him. Now, I haven't looked at the trend, but my next thing to track is what happens the game after the game after. Right. So you make a bunch of threes in one game, makes 1 or none in the next game. What happens that next game? I'm going to try to take a look at that. Y'all can probably beat me to the punch and go look it up yourself. But that's something I will be checking out this week just to kind of see as we preview the Michigan game, what happens the game after to see if what we can expect based upon what the trending direction has been for Miles Kelly and his shooting. But I love the effort that Miles gave on the defensive end. He was in foul trouble a little bit, but what he was giving you, particularly, again, against the switches that he had against Jemiah Neal and what he was doing to try to get out there to those shooters that they were doing, running off the screen action. Really great job by Miles Kelly. Really great activity. And then he showed up for Auburn in terms of just being able to late game free throw shooter, right? You can put him in the game and trust that he's going to go knock down some from free throws. So I loved what I saw from Miles Kelly as far as that activity is concerned. And that shows up in when you go and you look at the box score. He was a plus 14 when he was out there on the court, right? So he was contributing to Auburn having winning possessions when he was out there, even though he only made 1 shot on the day. And that was I think, first or second 3-pointer he made on the day. He was able to knock that down. And then lastly, Janai Broom, right? Janai was a guy who did not score a lot and really missed shots that he should have made. I hate the fact that he took 4 3-pointers in this game. Way too many threes, in my opinion. Didn't make a single one of them. Didn't make his 2 free throw attempts, but 12 rebounds. You can't just act like this is not significant in this game where you're going up against a true 7-footer out there. And he had 12 big rebounds, 5 of those offensive boards. And he had a couple of late shots there in the lane that were able to keep the momentum going for Auburn. Now, he's in need of a bounce back game, but 12 rebounds is big for Janai. And what he did defensively, he had 2 blocked shots in this game and a steal. He was executing, again, a really good job of executing what they needed him to do as far as the seal on the drive stuff, making sure that he's active on the offensive glass. He had a couple of putbacks that he needed to get for Auburn, and some opportunities where guys missed some stuff that they probably should have made, but Janai was right there to be able to get the offensive board and the putback. So I loved his activity during this game, and he stayed engaged despite the fact that scoring wasn't going to be a big thing for him in the game. So, again, I think he struggled a little bit in his defensive one-on-one situations versus Kalkbrenner, but I liked what he did in his team defense to be able to come over. Had the big block against Jemiah Neal there in the first half that led to the run out from Chad, and then subsequently the putback dunk from Dylan. So I loved what I saw from Janai as far as his activity in terms of that stuff. So that's it. That is my analysis of the game. I know that's kind of, deep into the weeds of a lot of that stuff. And we are going to go further into the weeds because we will look at some of this film, Green Name Gang. I got y'all at some point this week. We will take a look at that. But I'm going to get over here into this chat after we go to this break. And then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more from your comments. And we'll talk a little bit about Michigan, and we need to talk a little women's basketball. But you all are watching the mid. Oh, no, we're not the mid report. We're watching the weekend tailgate. Let's do it.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikaRageRoom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Yes, indeed. And check us out. Green Name Gang. Once again, I will have some recap film from this game versus Creighton. I will also be trying to do some preview film for the game versus Michigan. So make sure you get your memberships active. And if you are a member and you want to gift a membership to somebody, you can do that, and they will get a free month of membership on you. So make sure y'all go ahead and make that happen. If you happen to be someone who likes to put a little money on a game, make sure you head over to BetUS TV for odds and markets on all games and all sports that have some sort of betting activity. BetUS TV has information on what you can get and all of those different things. Make sure you head over there, and you won't be disappointed. A really great wealth of information for those of you who like to put a little some on the game. And also make sure you tap in with the guys in the network. We are the Auburn Express. We got the Uptempo Pod, College Loop, Just a Sec Pod. Appreciate Dustin being able to hop on with my guy C-Dub to react yesterday to Auburn making the Sweet 16. So a lot of great activity happening around the podcast network, and make sure you guys tap in. Joining me now as we get into the comment section is the aforementioned C-Dub, who is
going on, man,
talking a little Auburn basketball again. C, you already had your opportunity to react right after the game, but did you have any additional thoughts on what has happened since then, or just if you go back and watch highlights, you've been watching post game, have you been living in basketball land for the last 24 hours, man?
It's easy to live there when Auburn is winning. It's easy to kind of disconnect when they lose.
Yeah.
I've been living in basketball land. I actually rewatched the game, and it was a lot.
You rewatched the whole game?
Yeah.
Man, I haven't even had opportunity. I've been driving for most of the day. When I got back, I went and laid down, went to sleep, woke up, got me something to eat, and came straight in here and started. I've been on the go. I haven't had a chance to rewatch. But what did you feel about your rewatch?
I love the energy. I think this you could tell Auburn came out inspired in this game. Creighton just shot lights out in the first half.
Absolutely.
The energy was really, really good from Auburn, and I think they did a good job of defending The perimeter, Creighton just made a lot of tough shots, man. Like they
Yeah.
made some tough shots, and their coach said it. I think they interviewed the coach coming out the break, and the coach was saying the way that Auburn is rebounding and getting offensive boards and the way they're scoring in the interior, we're not going to be able to keep this up. We got to fix some things on their end, and they weren't able to do that. And you saw what happened in the second half. Auburn began to run them down and pass them and wouldn't relinquish that lead. And it was just good to see some of the effort. I know you mentioned Janai, and I was disappointed in Janai. I didn't really harp on him, but I had to rewatch the game. And there was a lot about Janai's game that I did like. Janai has this thing, and I have to go research this. You talked about Miles Kelly and how he is after he has a big game. I'm curious to see, how does Janai look in terms of his scoring when he has to go up against a 7-footer?
It hasn't been good for the most
It
part.
hasn't been good, right? And so that's
he's up against a true guy. Like, the only times that he doesn't struggle against guys with size is when they're also slow, right? Because he can do quick spins and stuff like that. But if he has to finish over the top, and this is the only critique that I have. Well, that's not the only critique. This is the major critique I have for Janai's game, is because he's not a super athletic guy, meaning he doesn't get off of the floor very high. When he goes to finish over the top, it's usually very quick because he wants to get the shot up before the contest comes. And sometimes I don't feel like he finishes completely, right? Like he just kind of throws it out,
throws it up there. Yeah.
He doesn't feel like a shot, really. It just feels like a throw in the direction of the rim. And he's really good at it, right? Which is why I just think it's a bad habit. And then I think that he doesn't finish through guys enough, right? Like just he wants to finish around and over, which is people say he's soft. It's a finesse game, but it's because he doesn't jump high. So he's not going to be able to really go over. But I think he needs to work on going through. Like, just listen, man, take the contact and finish through them, as opposed to trying to finish around, over, all this kind of stuff, because he knows he doesn't really have the athleticism to do it, which is why you see him take a lot of fadeaways and a lot, like he's trying to figure out angles to get shots off because he doesn't have the athleticism to go around over guys like Cheney does. Like Cheney, though he fades away a lot, he does a lot of like he's going to jump into guys and through guys because he can physically do that, right? Janai is not that guy. He uses angles a lot more. I think that's the one critique that a lot of people will have, and they call it, they say that he's soft for that, and it's not just like, but again, I think a guy he needs to go look at is a guy like Zach Randolph, who had that same issue. He ain't really gone. He couldn't get off the ground for nothing. Boy had the
Zebo, he put together a nice little game in the post, man.
But he really was physical in the way he would go through guys and really just make sure he was carving space. I think Janai could use a little bit more of that because he does have the size to be able to do that. But that's really the major critique I would have for his game.
I'm just looking forward to Michigan. I don't know a lot about them. I watched a little bit of them when I was keeping up with Trey to just see how he was doing. I'm happy for him. Not happy for him now. I'm ready for him to get bounced out of the tourney because he's
about that time, Trey. It's about time to shut it down.
Yeah. It's been fun. It's been fun, Trey. This has been great. It's been a nice little story, but we got to put the brakes to that. But I'm looking to see, because I think Michigan has a couple of bigs.
They do.
That they play. So again, I know people are asking about Janai and his game and when he's going to snap out of it. Again, this has been kind of his Achilles heel when he goes up against 7-footers. Will he bounce back? I don't know, but this is the same problem that's been kind of affecting him in certain games.
For sure. All right, let me get over here to the comment section and see what you guys are talking about here. We'll start it out, as always, with super chats, and the only one we have right now is from Heavy, who says, we threatened C-Dub if he didn't do the plus minus last night. C-Dub,
don't put no we in it. It was just you, Heavy. It was just you threatening me, Heavy. But I came through for you.
All right, that's what's up, man. Listen, man, I know C was going to hold down the post game in my absence. No worries about that at all. For sure. Anthony Rudd jumps in and says, Ike, what is it going to take for Janai to get it going on offense? I actually in this game, I actually don't think the strategy was for Janai to get it going on offense, right? Like he took 13 shots in this game. Again, 4 of them were threes. I think what they wanted Janai to do is exactly what he did, which is if he gets his opportunities in the lane, now he missed some that he should have made that were in the lane, little quick shots or whatever. But I think strategically in this game, they wanted to go and let the guards dominate this game because that's where they felt like they had the advantage. They didn't feel like, oh, we've got an advantage in the post with Janai. We're going to work that advantage. No, the guy's bigger than Janai, taller than Janai. We're going to turn Janai into a screener and let him clean up the glass. That's what he did. He screened really effectively in this game.
I like how he sealed Kalkbrenner to let Cheney Johnson score on a couple of plays. It was beautiful drawing how they drew it up.
And then he was going to be a rebounder because they know if the guards get downhill and Kalkbrenner comes over for that block, that means that Janai is going to be available to go get the boards. He did a really great job of being a rebounder. I think that was more strategy than anything in this game. Now, Janai needs to finish some of these other shots that he missed, and I think he needs to turn down the 3 a little bit more even when it's open. But again, I just don't think that was what the game plan was in this one, and they executed that game plan really well.
Yeah, if he's struggling on offense, I don't want to see him take threes. Like if he's not hitting, like, because usually what's happening is when he hits that 3 is when he's been feeling good. He's been getting some work in the interior. If that's not happening, there's no need for you to take that 3, buddy. You're ice cold.
Yeah, I didn't like the 3s. The only one I wasn't mad at was like it was a late shot clock situation. It's like, all right, I get why you took that when you didn't have much time, but I'd rather him catch that open and then take a couple of dribbles and take a mid-range shot and get to the lane, maybe try to hit that middle of the lane floater than I would a 3-pointer. So
yeah.
Heavy with another super chat. He says, I miss Trey, but I want him to regret leaving Auburn. So I don't know if he'll regret it, even if they get the if Michigan takes the L in this game. But I definitely want, at this point in time, I want to be the reason why his season's over. So
yeah.
Let's see. Robert jumps in, says, looks like Wolf is their scoring guy and Golden is the boards guy. That's pretty much what it is. Those of you who remember Danny Wolf, it was the guy who was the center for Yale last year. And he's definitely more of the scorer, and Golden is more of the rim protector / he scores as well. I think Golden had like 20-something points in this game, something crazy like that. Or maybe Wolf had 20-something and Golden had like 15, but they both, I think they combined for like almost 40 points in this game versus Texas A&M. And Golden had double-digit rebounds, like did a really great job on the glass versus a very good rebounding team in Texas A&M. But that is exactly kind of how they work it. If you think about it, Golden is very similar to like a Kalkbrenner, where he's not like a scorer, but he can score and he's going to do most of his work in and around the paint. And then Danny Wolf, you guys again remember him from last year, so you already kind of know he's a ball handler and he can step out and shoot a little bit and all that. So
he scored 13 against Auburn in the Yale game, 4-15. Didn't really shoot well.
Yeah, he didn't. Auburn did a really good job against him for the most part in that game. It was that other Poulikitis was the guy who
he was the one giving Auburn work. He had 28.
Yeah, that was the guy who really did it for him. Heavy with another super chat here said, "Is Mike G still stuck in traffic?" I don't know. I just know that he was stuck in traffic in Atlanta at some point in time, and that threw him off. And so we will see what happens with Mike G. But hopefully he gets home safely. He should be, if he's not at home now, he should be close to home now based on the last update I got from him. Habersham Jim says, this time will allow our guys to heal. I mean, the only person, the 2 people, I guess, that really needs, to heal are going to be Chad, right? Because according to Coach Pearl, in the immediate aftermath, he thought it was just a bruise situation. Didn't think it was anything serious for Chad.
That's what they reported on the live on the game.
Yeah, and so they'll look at it further and see if anything. But yeah, he'll need some time to rest up and heal. And then Simo, who didn't play any minutes, he was looking okay during warmups, but I think that they were just like, yeah, we'll just give you a little bit more time, which I'm completely fine with that. And I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how they changed the rotations again. They really shortened it to a 7-person rotation in this game, and be interesting to see kind of what the rotation is in this Michigan game, because Michigan is going to be a team that wants to get out and run. They're going to want to push tempo. You're going to need bodies defensively to make sure that you can weather, because that's Michigan is going to be a game of attrition. Like they are a team, kind of how I talked about with Alabama State, who they're just going to continue to fight and claw. They're never really out of games because of how much they just kind of chip away at leads, and they stay close, and then they fight and claw, and they push pace, and they do a lot to get you tired. And at the end of the game, they're able to come up with some big shots, big clutch rebounds, all that sort of thing. So Auburn having some depth in this game is going to be important.
You absolutely just described the Texas A&M game, because that was that to a T. Like, it looked like they were out of it, but they just never gave up and just took over in that game. Yeah, so that's something to keep on of.
Heavy with another super chat says, the War Report headed to Atlanta. You better believe.
Oh, yeah.
Me and Mike G are in that thing. Going to go make sure we are right there checking out the action, Auburn versus Michigan. And looking forward to that one. Jonathan Boyson says, only 2 down with them shooting 65% from 3 in the first half. I felt good about us winning the game. I think this is where everybody probably should have been. I mean, it's nerve-wracking, right, to sit there and watch them absolutely go crazy from 3, and you're like, bro, come on. Let me just, when Kalkbrenner hit that first 3, banked it off the glass, I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. I see what we're doing. It's about to be one of them type of situations where, because Mike and I, of course, were sitting next to each other on the sideline, and it seemed like there was at least 3 different instances where the ball just kind of goes all over the place, and it found its way into Creighton's hands, and they end up hitting a 3 out of a scramble situation, which we was like, bro, what is this? Like, that ain't even real, bro. Like, that was clear. Like
there was one where it looked like it was a definite steal, and it landed off someone's foot, and I think it ended up in McAndrew's hands, and he just downs a 3.
I was like, yo, this is crazy, bro. This is, and that's, but again, all of that was in the first half. And I was like, see, most of this is chance and shooting out of your mind. They can't maintain this. Auburn just needs to keep doing what they're doing. Just keep crashing the glass, keep making them have to defend more than one person, getting downhill, like, and contest. If you do that, it's going to eventually, and I think I tweeted, I was like, look, law of averages, do your thing. Just law of averages say y'all are not going to keep shooting like this. And Auburn's missing shots that they probably should make right now. This is all, it's going to catch up in a minute.
And in the second half, you just saw Auburn's wings just get downhill. Like, they were able to get to the basket whenever they wanted to. And it was, to me, that was putting pressure on Creighton to have to try to keep up. And that's when you saw that. I think it was a 13-4 run after Chad went out, but even before then, Auburn was getting and ones, getting threes the hard way, and it was clear that Auburn's wing players were just better than Creighton's, and so they just took over.
Yeah. My guy Mike Hicks says, how do you guys feel about the injuries? We talked about this a little bit already, but I don't feel as if none of them looked super significant. Like, Simo definitely turned his ankle, and an additional week of him being able to rest up and heal is going to be good. Yeah. The thing that he didn't get a lot of minutes in this game. They only had 2, actually. The reason why I'm not super worried, even though I think Simo is the better communicator and energy guy as far as just kind of knowing what Coach Pearl and the defensive scout want him to do. I love every time Ja'Kai Howard gets in the game, I love his energy that he brings. Like, he just seems like a guy he's chomping at the bit to contribute. And he didn't go into this game when he got those 2 minutes. He didn't go out there trying to say, all right, let me be the hero. He just went out there and ran the offense. And I loved, like, the 2 minutes he was out there, they were like, he was a +3 those 2 minutes he was out there in the game. Like, he just did what he was supposed to do, gave good energy. You didn't see him blow any defensive assignments. And I think if Chad had been out for an extended period of time, you'd have seen more Ja'Kai Howard minutes in that game. And I think he would have been fine, because Chad really he didn't do much when he got back out there. Like, he went for a few minutes and he had to go right back out to the bench. Like, so I think you could have seen Ja'Kai Howard a little bit more, and I don't think it would have damaged what had happened in that game to that point in time. And maybe even he'd have been a little bit more active on the boards because he could move around a little bit more and all that sort of thing during that time. So
yeah.
Devin says the first half was stressful. When we went up by 8 in the second half, I knew we were going to win. Yeah, it felt like once they started to stretch the lead that it was going to take somebody turning the ignition switch back on the 3-point machine for Creighton for them to get back into that game. Just because I didn't think they had enough. Creighton tried to do to Auburn what they did to Louisville, which is, we're going to come out in the first half and we're going to stretch them out. We're going to shoot a bunch of threes, and they made a high percentage of them. And then they were like, all right, so in the second half, they're going to think we're trying to shoot a bunch of threes, but we're going to try to go to the post a lot. And you saw the first action that they ran out of the half was a lob attempt to Kalkbrenner. It's the very first one. So they tried to run a very similar action, except the guard gets downhill and they tried to lob it over the top. Auburn stopped it. And then you notice they ran a lot more stuff where they would make the Auburn big come out, and then they would try to dump it down to Kalkbrenner.
Yeah,
the switch, right? And so you'd have,
Cheney
Johnson,
Cheney, right?
Pinned behind him and all that kind of stuff, and they're getting easy twos with him. But that's the fight Auburn actually wants to have with you. We don't want you bombing. Like, they actually played into Auburn hand. They're like, oh, okay, that's y'all gonna work it into the paint and do tough twos all day. Cool. I'm cool with that. We just don't need you hitting 9 threes.
Right.
As long as Auburn's doing a good job, which they did, of defending without fouling in there, Kalkbrenner can have all the little layups and dunks he wants, because we're going to turn it up on the other end. We're going to make it so difficult for you to get into that action and for you to even get him the ball that you're going to limit the number of possessions that you're going to have. And you can't stay with us on the other end. You proved that in the first half. So we're just going to continue to work that advantage. And that's exactly what would happen. It's like you're not big boy in Auburn the way you big boy Louisville. That's not happening. We got too many bigs that can actually fight a little bit and make it difficult for him to even get a catch in there. And then so by the time he does get the catch, it's late in the shot clock, and he better not miss. Because if he misses, he's not getting his own board, and we're off and we're running again. So I think they kind of played into Auburn's hands a little bit, trying to repeat a strategy that works against a team that's smaller than you.
Right.
Jamal Pye jumps in and says, I don't want to hear Trey knew our offense. I don't know why you don't want to hear it. It's true, but it doesn't matter. Like, everybody knows Auburn's offense at this point.
Right.
They're running the same stuff they've been running for.
Everyone knows what everyone's doing now.
Bruce Pearl's been running the same. Like, there's only 2 or 3 actions that they've run that are new actions, and they've already run them. So unless they got some else out there, and Trey's only one guy, everybody else has to be able to defend that stuff as well. Now, what might be more accurate is Trey knows this player's tendencies, right? Like, Trey knows this guy likes to do this. And so when he does this, then I'm going to do this to defend that, because I went up against him in practice for, in which Denver would be the only person that would apply to. He's never played to High Pettiford before, right? And so he doesn't, you can watch him on film, but like, getting a feel for him in live action and how fast he really is, and how does he really have that thing on the string like it looks like, you'll see that differently going up against him live. But
don't know Miles. Haven't played against Miles.
You've never played Miles Kelly, so like there's very few tendencies he can draw on other than Denver Jones, and Denver wasn't really playing the point a lot when he was playing against him in practice. So
hey, they know his tendencies too.
I was about to say, but Trey, on the other hand, he's not the exact same player. He's grown and he's matured a little bit in some way. He doesn't force as many threes, I think, but it goes the other way too. We played against him in practice a lot, and we understand like a lot of things he likes to do. So I think it's going to be a really good matchup, man. I think, again, I will get into that matchup a little bit more as the week progresses, but I am looking forward to this game for sure. All right. Any other thoughts that you have on just the men's basketball? Because I do want to talk a little women's basketball. I don't know how much you have to input on that, but I do want to talk a little women's basketball before we get out of here.
No, I mean, the only thing I'll say is that Auburn took care of business. They got out of the first weekend, and the whole talk about Bruce Pearl not being able to get out of the first weekend that's been put to bed. Auburn still has everything in front of them, starting with Michigan. They just got to go out here, heal this week, get those guys rested, and come out and play with the intensity, similar intensity we saw them play with, and execute the game plan, trust the game plan, trust one another, and do what you do, man.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I think Auburn is in a really good position. I like this matchup versus Michigan more than I would have liked the matchup versus Texas A&M. Not to say that this is an easier matchup, but I think Auburn matches up better against Michigan in the style of play that they have versus Auburn's style of play. So we'll talk more as this week goes on. But before we get out of here, definitely want to mention Auburn women's basketball has hired a new head coach. And that is, let me pull up the information I have on him, Larry Vickers. He is the former head coach for the my brains stop working.
Was it Norfolk?
Norfolk State. Thank you for Norfolk State University. He had been the head coach there for like 9 years. At full season, he was an interim coach in that 10th year, but 9 full seasons there. Overall record of 83-41. That's a 67% winning percentage, 66.9 to be exact. Made it to the NCAA tournament as the MEAC champion the last 2 seasons there, and so this season and the season before, and he was in the NIT in the season prior to that. So made the postseason the last 3 years as a head coach there at Norfolk State. And if you look at the defensive numbers now, they beat Auburn this last season when in Neville Arena with him as the head coach. And if you look at the defensive numbers, he has teams that have been ranking in the top 20 and 30 consistently on defense. This man absolutely knows how to coach defense. He coaches effort. He plays a very up-tempo style and brand of basketball. He reminds me a lot of, I talked about this with Alex, our guy who does the photography. Jazzy Joe was there with us at Lexington. He reminds me a little bit of Nolan Richardson, the Arkansas coach back in the day, of just like it is, we're going to press you, and press you and press you some more. And eventually that press is going to turn into turnovers, and we're going to get out and we're going to transition. Like it is like Coach J, very good defensive coach. She didn't press a lot though. Like she was hard-nosed, physical, half-court defense. He is full court intensity, tempo. Like that is the way that he likes to get out there. So I'm looking forward to seeing that brand of basketball, and hopefully he can get the right athletes in there to be able to play that and get the right depth so that they can rotate the way he wants to. And then I really want to see what he's going to be able to produce on the offensive end of the floor, because that was the struggle for me for this Auburn team. But I think if I were to, well, let me get your thoughts before I go too far. Did you have any thoughts on it, or do you not?
I didn't really know much about him, so I was just eager to hear what you thought about him.
Yeah. If I actually thought a lot about this on the drive, because we got wind that this was the direction it might go yesterday. And so, I had some time to think about it on the drive back. I thought about it a little bit more, and, I really wanted Auburn to get a coach that had some Power 4 experience as a coach. That's not the case in this one. I wanted, if not a Power 4 coach, a coach that felt as if they were on that next wave of being good Power 4 potential coaches, which is why I was really high on Molly Miller, the Grand Canyon coach. And so I wouldn't say this is a home run, right? Because I don't know how inspiring that is to recruits to be able to come over in the transfer portal. And that's really what's going to tell me how good a hire this is how many people who either like the Talia Scotts of the world who entered the transfer portal but hasn't made a transfer destination yet. Does she see this hire and say, oh, he could be my coach, and she comes back? Some of those recruits that change their commitment and he gets an opportunity to talk to them, will that say, okay, yeah, I love that, because they knew they were going to be coming into a situation where they were going to be playing hard-nosed defense. Oh, he plays a defensive brand of basketball that I can get behind. Sure, I'm willing to recommit to Auburn. That's what's going to start to make this more of a home run. I think that this is a solid double, though, right? Like this is a situation where you've put yourself in scoring position. For my baseball folks, I'm using a very heavy baseball metaphor here.
I'm with you.
Solid contact. You put yourself in scoring position, but it's going to take a little bit more to get you back to home plate and get a score here. So I don't think it's a home run, but I do think that it's a good leadoff double where he has the potential to be he's already a good coach. He has the potential to be a really great coach because of the caliber of athletes that he's able to get at an Auburn that he might not have been able to get at a Norfolk State, just because they're going to have more resources to be able to put around him. But it's going to be like he's going to need John Cohen, the boosters, to be the power hitter that brings this home. He's on, or is he going to be stranded out there on second base and you don't get any runs in because he didn't get any help? That's where I'm looking at right now with Larry Vickers as the coach.
All I heard is you said we didn't strike out. So
no. This is far from a strikeout. Like, I think this is a solid hire. This is a solid hire, and it's one that I'm actually that actually gives me some confidence that Auburn's going to continue to play a brand of basketball that I can enjoy watching, which is going to be, again, an intense defensive style of basketball. And it's going to allow you to be in situations where you can pull off upsets because you're just going to bother the crap out of teams when they come and play basketball against you. You might not have a superior athletes. Listen, this is a team now, granted, these were two of the worst teams in the league, but he took Norfolk State, beat Auburn and Missouri last year, two SEC teams that had a more highly touted guy, but didn't matter. We're going to pressure you, and we're going to make this difficult for you to live life in these minutes that we have out here on the floor. So I like the hire, and I think that how they put the resources behind recruiting. Another thing that I didn't mention about this, and this was always the big thing for me, for everybody's like, oh, Auburn needs to make a splash hire. I don't know how you expect Auburn to make a splash hire when Auburn's not putting any money behind the coach.
So that's going to be my question for you. Does this change that, or is this more of the same, Mike? What is your opinion there?
I don't think that he's going to get paid a lot of money to come be the coach at Auburn. He's probably, if I would venture a guess, this contract's probably going to look something like $590, $600, a year, which in most people's minds, oh man, getting paid $600,000 a year to coach women's basketball, that's wonderful. Until you realize there are coaches making $3 million, and like the average P4 coach is making around $1 million. So you're like 60% of an average coaching salary at Auburn. So it's going to be a step up for him, because I doubt Norfolk State was paying him that kind of bread, but it still doesn't put you in the same. So I don't know how people expected Auburn to go out and hire who I thought would have been a home run hire in Kelly Harper, when Kelly Harper was coming from Tennessee as her last job. I know they was paying her bread at Tennessee. She probably was getting paid $2 million at Tennessee. You weren't going to be able to do that. Now, did Missouri pony up that kind of money? I don't know. I don't know what Missouri's women's basketball coffers are looking like. But I do know that it was going to be difficult to go and get some of the names that people were throwing out there without having to pony up some money. And I just don't know if they were ready to put that kind of financial commitment behind a coach. And in my opinion, with the place that Auburn women's basketball is in right now, it may make more sense to go get a coach who does really good with the X's and O's, and then put the rest of that money behind NIL and make sure that you can get him some talent in here to coach up. Right. Like, so we're not going to go out there and we're not going to get all the 5 stars in the world, but we're going to go get it's really the Bruce Pearl strategy, right? Like, without the, controversy or whatever behind it, but it's the strategy of, we're going to go get a coach who maybe a lot of people don't want to hire right now, but then we're going to go get like talent from all over, and we're going to scout really well, and we're going to put the right collection of players together to be able to go out there. Because Bruce Pearl don't get a bunch of 5 stars. He goes and gets D2 transfers and JUCO guys and group of 5 folks, and folks that are in that. Larry Vickers can be a guy that can put that collection of bodies together, and then we're going to go out and play a brand of basketball that makes it difficult for other teams to compete against us because we have the right athletes in the right spots. I'm hoping that's the direction that he takes. And then, if you start winning a little bit, go pay the man.
You're right.
So,
you're right.
All right, a few more chats. We'll get out of here. Pocket Watch says, at Bucky's on my way back from Lexington. Looking forward to Atlanta. Hope we get a chance to run into you out there. Pocket Watch, be safe out there on the road. And then he comes back and says, as a longtime Auburn women's basketball season ticket holder, I'm a big fan of this hire. I think it's really a good fit. I mean, we'll see what the fit looks like. You know, and I think that's another important thing that I didn't mention in this whole thing is fit is important. How well does he mesh with the quote unquote powers that be around Auburn that are going to be holding the purse strings that allow him to get the kind of financial support that he wants? You know, and then, you know, he's been a coach for 10 years, but not at this level. How well does he run a program, right? Like, how buttoned up is he around, you know, it's little stuff. Like I watch, I talked about this with Mike watching, you know, when I go to games, I look at the pregame routines for players and look at what they do in like little stuff. Like I'll give you this kind of tidbit, football games. When I went and I was at Georgia and I watched in the pregame, their defensive players go and do drills where they'll have a coach throw the ball to a guy, and then a defensive player goes and not full contact, but goes, hits them, and then rips at the ball trying to rip it out. And they practice that in a drill before the game. Like there's a big, because, okay, we're going to practice generating turnovers, right? Watching this Creighton game, I watched them go through layup drills, but they did the layup drills doing wrong foot layups, right? So if it's on the left side, they were using the left foot and the left hand intentionally. And then they would use the right foot and the right hand on the left side, but they do it leaning towards the rim, right? They start outside and then they would lean towards the rim wrong-footed. So it's like I'm watching them go through drills of things that they expect their players to do in their offense. You see sometimes that coaches are doing drills where it's a dribble baseline kick corner, right? And that's the whole drill is we're going to start at the top here. Somebody starts in the corner here. I'm going to dribble and you're going to go to the corner. I watched that kind of stuff to see what are the things that they expect to get out of the offense, or what are the things that you're teaching your players to do. So fit is important in that way as well, of like, how do you run that kind of stuff? What are the things that you expect your players to do to prepare for games? So things like that matter, man. And I get so frustrated when I watch players be casual going through drills pregame, because I'm like, all right, you're not locked in, bro. Like, just I know you've done this same layup line 100 times already because you did it in practice, and then you're gonna come out here and you're gonna do it in 30 games. But like, lock in and get these reps serious. Take game shots. Like, don't yeah, you can play around a little bit, but like when we're going through the drills, be serious. Like, be frustrated you just missed this layup line because you're not locked in right now.
Right.
And I want to see a coach that's going to like have his staff out there being like, hey, do it right. I want to walk into a practice and they're making them do it right. Because if you practice this way, if you prepare this way, you're going to see that in the game. So I'm going to be looking for stuff like that with Coach, and hopefully we'll get, the access to be able to come in and do and see those preparation points as well for him. So I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
All right, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate everybody for jumping in here with us. Once again, Gaze stuff is brought to you by Golden Cast Iron. Get your weight up is the code for the weights. TWR is Fire Pits and Kamado Grills. If you're not Green Name Gang, you're going to miss some great content this week. Make sure you get locked in there. If you want to gift a membership, you can do that right now, and somebody will get a free month on you. Tap in with the network, Auburn Express, Up-Tempo Podcast, College Loop, and Just a Sec, all out there for your listening pleasure on podcast. Before you all get out of here, make sure that you share this content with somebody and use hashtag Get Your Weight Up, like the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. You can follow us on social media. We're at The War Report on Instagram and Twitter, TW Report on TikTok. We will be back at you guys with great content later on this week. Again, some previews for the Michigan game coming up, some more kind of recap of stuff that I saw when I get a chance to go back and rewatch the game on TV and see the TV copy of this for what happened in that Creighton game. But we'll be back at you guys later. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.